Okay, children are free to go to your class. Let me remind all of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation, the highest form of motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this loving teaching, stages of the path to enlightenment, that brings together all the essential points of practice leading to complete enlightenment. So we are back to volume number 3 in English translation of the great treatise on the states of the path to enlightenment we call Lamrim Chemo. And so we are in the special insight section of the Lamrim, or the Vipassana section. And in order for us to understand emptiness, the ultimate nature of phenomena, that it is must that we engage in what we call the analysis or analytical investigation or meditation. And there are a number of things that we must really focus on. And the most important one in the beginning is to identify precisely what we call the object of negation, or what is being negated or refuted. Okay? Now that seems like a simple, straightforward point, but as we have discussed for a while, that this is not so easy to understand. And many different schools of thought have a lot of things to say about what it is or what it should be. And one of the points that we have already dealt with is not negating enough. Okay? And so from Prasangika Madhyamika's point of view, my first note, which we always consider as one's own school of thought, that what is identified in many of other schools of thought as object of negation is not adequate. What they have refuted is not adequate and enough, so therefore, you see, you really don't understand what emptiness is. So we have already dealt with that part. And then, of course, they would like to ask us, okay, then what is your take on it? Tell me, what is your position here? And so as we have started to deal with one's own position on this matter, we said, well, we categorize object of negation into two types. One is objects of negation by the path, Lamji Gakcha in Tibetan, and object of negation by reasoning or rationality. So we have already dealt with objects of negation by the path, and so we also started to talk about object of negation by reasoning. Okay, so I'm just providing you the context so that where we are at this point in the Lamrim text.
Lamni Gakcha Singitala Yugubada. Timana any Timsitam payment to Chobata. Repair Kapchala Megubata. Any not repair car merit Sintas, Sung Yoravatima Sung to Larism Yazina, Tisundua. Chevayenta, any district Yorta, Minima Descent was Shuntam Rabbi Huvina. Tinemaji Sabis Rona. Sebasu, Maripu Mongan Namji, Rahin, the Japan to Trotanes. Trota Banam Rahin, you were my imper cover Chivia in base. That's Sebasu choose to do Marantoge. That is Paglam Papelam Matobe. That comes out of that. See me, Nanda, Karijanata. That's your Badamangush, or take it together. Take a carrot to Sabina and Pigate. Agare Mongbatik. You Maripi Mongbadam, any Karajever, Tanga ritual Maripi Mongbatin, take Le Kana Kandi, San, your chambo Kandisik Lagalena. That Kungan of the Kumatongan of the Zone of the Maripi timber, Mariba. Kumatongan Zone of the Maripi, but they send to us Mariba Namji Rancient Java need to use that Rancien your Marabas. Rancien your Mariti Yinayatana, Chinang Overnam, any kind of Shanla Ram Maluve. Rahin in India, that not to Tamji, Gilty, that Chinang Yala Ram living over in India. Ranjit the champion to Trotak, but the Rajan of my imbas. Tenti said that I'm a Tinju church and my share in the Kagjat my share. Take Kajiki, Tingoji, Ripa, Ripangonto, Ripasiano. That's the time Nambation my share in the Sajatella Sajene, some chili. 통항원줄세야지 마통아 꼬줄세야다 신도 꼬줄텔라야 신도 꼬줄다 종세 꼬줄 니센 마 자제네 숨치기하래 종세 꼬줄생이데 땅나도 좁야 딘버다 바나 이제 센단다 엄마 텐주에 막 뭐블로도 막 도인도 발다 예 라신 요 마레스 라신 매브디 브레 라신 요 마레티 임베이나야 라신 디테버직자 휴마토 레용 거르티 그리베 가고도 센 that Kaviorba. Cheta Trotaba Kaimbal, Ranchiuba, Mayimba, that report about the Ranchiuba, Cheta, the Ranchin thing into your Mari. Ranchin your Mariti, Yina, Ranchin Mevel, Ranchin Mevel, Ranchin to Bari and Dinting, Lotigate in your Mari, the Tondo figure. Take carrying in, I'm not telling you what they say, want to repair on it, carrying in, or they sung you to a song medicine. You were my impala, and it is Koji, low you to Koji. Chigoni Tarang is very no Chinese, remember. Low you to Par, low Europa, and Pigati, no Chinese, ten, about the negative button to Tiba, or Tikoji, and Sungi, or the Koji, Natica, you get the 6 about 6 guitar, 6 solid cards, what is it? Ni Lan Jai and you are that Koji, Seji, Koji in the Seji message, or Koji, Louis to Corachi, Tati and Koyaji, want to get it by easy.
So we are on page 205, and so Khensur Rinpoche explains, based on what is in the text, that those of us who are referred to as childlike sentient beings. Okay, childlike in the sense that we have not yet realized the ultimate nature of phenomena. We are not transcendental yet. We are not Aryas yet. Aryas are the ones who have direct insight into the ultimate nature of things. So therefore, they have gone beyond. Whereas we are stuck in samsara. So in that sense, we are very childlike sentient beings, and our mind is really pretty much dominated by ignorance. Okay, and ignorance influences the way we perceive things and the way we experience this. And out of ignorance, that we engage in all kinds of karmic actions, good and bad, and the mixed bags. You see, even the positive actions that we do in samsara, deep down, it is very much affected by our grasping at intrinsic existence. Okay, the negative actions, sure, but even the positive ones we do, it is somehow contaminated by that grasping at intrinsic existence of things. And so it's very important for us to analyze what that fundamental ignorance is and what is its nature. Okay, does it exist intrinsically or not? Of course, the answer to that is that nothing exists intrinsically, including that nasty ignorance, which is actually good news. My second footnote. And as we talked about this before, that when we deal with objects of negation by the path, these objects of negation must exist. If they were not to exist, then we would all have become Buddhas, without need to make any efforts. Okay, so objects of negation by the paths are something that really exists, and we have to work to be able to counteract them and to get rid of them. Now, the object of negation by reasoning is something that must not and should not and does not exist. Are you with me? If it were to exist, no amount of reasoning can really, refute it. Yeah. And that's a big difference, right? We have to always keep in our mind. Then we could ask, okay, if the object of negation by reasoning is something that does not exist, then why we have to make so much effort, to analyze and to reason, and what are we trying to do? Okay. The reason why we have to do that is deep down inside us, even though, all things, internal phenomena and external phenomena, do not exist in and of themselves or intrinsically, but we fabricate intrinsic nature of things and attribute to them. We are doing a good job here, right? So now, not only we fabricate such a nature, now we even don't realize we have fabricated it, and we look at everything else from that lens. So we perceive everything as intrinsically existent. And so that grasping and ignorance exists, even though intrinsic reality does not exist, but our perception of grasping at it does exist. So therefore, we need to use reasons and analysis to be able to, tell ourselves and counteract our grasping at intrinsic nature of things. That's basically the reason why we have to deal with this. And so therefore, all different schools of thought come from different, reasons and approaches, to do that. And Prasangika Madhyamika Uma Thengyuba, the high school of thought, also brings their set of reasons, to establish that there is no intrinsic reality. The kind of reasoning that is being used, because in Buddhism, metaphysics and logic and reasoning is a huge, extensive thing. We call Ngodabji Rigpa, reasoning based upon, facts, literally translating. Okay, so by using the power of the facts, that we try to establish something, And as we talked about this before, that in the case of external phenomena, say if you're too, cold, then we can put the heater on. Some other, right, we will call the energy, that is antithesis to cold, and it can kind of balance out, right, the temperature. There means two different sets of things which are antithesis to each other. We use it against each other. If it's too hot, put the air conditioning on. Okay, it's balanced out. But in the case of working with our mindset, it's not that. Okay, the only way we can, counteract or deal with our misperceptions and graspings is by generating another perception or state of mind, that invalidates, the object perceived by the misapprehension. Okay, that will tell us that, for example, as we said, we grasp at intrinsic reality, which is a misapprehension. Now, by generating another perception that tells us that what we believe in and grasping at, it really does not exist. Okay, so that the other mode of apprehension, the perception, really it counteracts. It is antithetical to our grasping. So that's how the way mind works inside is a little different from how the external things work against each other.
That is the Ranluk Rabushikasi. That name on this Suguntoa, Kajik Kajak's name to Diane Yanjiki, tell us the New Year of Stampina in this Sungtoa, tell us in Doa. That Yanjiki, that Tinju Rashi Drova Melba to Koji, Siaki, the Ripatiki, tell any Rashi you were my nas, Rashi you by Rashi or Maravas. Chunan Rashi to Drova de Kakjasat, you are the Maravas. Rashi maybe in a ya, any piggy Rashi never to be any tentic any piggy many and to give or what Rashi never is intended to do what. Tentic the Madobe and this and one day. Take the Madobe and the Rashi of Maimba and the Rabti to buy in us. Tentic the Mago which a Karichevi in a Rashi to buy maybe the Maveri. Rabti to buy in us, Tomani piggy. Dubai, that Kajik to be a Jagi or Tandi, not Karikaba Jagi, Hago, Marchung, me, quite a Chamberava, Rachita, near the Tuba Jagi. Rajish to Ranpe Rabti to Bayina. And a Rajish to a his a thick test, Rajish Karsa made to his away. Oma Tenju at Chiran, the Rajish you are married, and any piggy, Conjuk Pasum, Perish, what Yapti to us, and Saravata, Kajik. To Subar to come to the studio. Rashi made the case of a thick day, Chisik Sawa, Meva Kain, but this. I am not you at Rang Rashi, you are married, Meva Kain, but they, and if you report my in or she several song, Hibra Chao, Siatati, Subal Jaya, Chicks. At the Shamdi Tistua, a river Maino, she several song by Hibra Tao, Subal Jaya, Niman Rosa, Lena Jaya in Nachrangi. Otati Yukita, Hibrachao, Tichik Raval. That is some day, Tinde in answer yesterday. Rashi Jua never Tinde in San, any teacher. Any Yona any go menu, Menaka me good base. You know any Charangi repair Kachu Marsito. Repair Kaya Yomarba, Yubati never repair Kaya Yomarba. Get them Paris. Can go to love song, you never repair garment of service. Take repair garment of it. Menani any character. Go Kogaya Maris. Go Kayacha Yo Mari any piggy. Cardu than Teva Impes. Cardu the Teva Impes. Cardu the Rebecca Mango Chebanis. A Korakawai Machi to buy Machin Jamdi, but there you was Panjam the Dins, but there you Cardu Chen Chacha Mariti, many everything or every. Senate to Songuisarava. Cartridge regarded Mambochevani, Tani did 6 Jamleb and Doba, Krang Tani, Maranto in Jitank, Tani, Tapan Tati, Yorva, Party, Tixias, Yorva, what taken, Jitank, Tani, something, 6 magic, Carso and Jam City, 6 Jamleb and Doba City, but 6 Niti, Junjan of Chain. Subachaya, the Junjan, the Manjani, Remado, Carter, Tatu and Tumde Toyatke, your Maris. Comea, your Maris, Tawa Latte, Tumde, Tomate, Tumde Toyatke, your Maris, and Carter, tiny significant 6 Jamleb and Doba. What a deep part of Toba in Chaya, what is your
So one thing Khensur wants to tell us that as we deal with really very difficult subject matters like this, we said, we have to allow for all different kinds of interpretations, explanations. What he is doing is coming from one point of view, but it's also possible that there could be other ways of understanding our interpretations. Okay, so then, critique, kind of ask this question to Prasangika Madhyamikams. Okay. So you said that nothing could exist intrinsically. Okay. And that's your position. Okay. And if that's the case, then there's no need for you to say anything. If nothing exists intrinsically, even the words and the reasonings and analysis that you are using must not exist intrinsically. Okay? And what's the point of trying to use reasoning when your whole position is nothing exists intrinsically? That makes no sense, right? That's critique. Okay. But on the other hand, if something were to exist intrinsically, then you already said that then that could not be refuted by any reasoning. Are you with me? Okay. So they said, if something were to exist intrinsically, which is the position of the essentialists, right, not the Madhyamikas, then Prasangika said that then we could not refute, right? If something were to exist intrinsically, hypothetical situation, then that could not be refuted or destroyed by any reasoning. Plus, okay. So if that is your position, now critics say, I think the best really approach should be silence. You just keep quiet. Because, from their point of view, it's not making any sense to them, right? They said, okay, you don't believe in intrinsic existence, but yes, you are using too many words and argumentation. It's almost like, they feel like Prasangikas are arguing for the sake of argumentation. They just love to argue. There's no other point. They say, you don't have to do that. Just be quiet and be silent, Let's have a peace,
All that did elaborate history. Tanya Tikam Lanjan never do about this here, at the Kajik to but say. Dar Rebecca the Lamji Kaja any Gagdu Kanaga, Tonji Maka can do any picking, can do Paju to Mava in test. That in this year, that in the Mangente. United to be a car ministry, you may well see your marriage in get your stretch, your marriage again. Tell us here, tell us matters about Rebecca in it, and Lamji Kaja in it, Gagdu, Gagwata, Duba, Paju, Gagwanda, two Dubanda, Tindegi, any piggy, Tonji Makashin to Ranila piggy, Gagdu thing in the country into. Kaya Kadeka, Tuvia Garit to Gudu, Magan, John Kandel Hagdo, Gana any cavent of the Karidu, and Tirek Tonji Shao race, the Tonji Shao race. Maras in Chite, Pepper Sheva, then Bandit Tabina, Bandit Tony, tell her Taris Technique, tell Tabu Mato, Bantan and Madon say, Tonji, Bank Tonji of the Tan Machab Sierra, she can't Machab say, and Perry Manguchap Devina. And the Cartorda Cotel Lotel Tonjisha, Marie, Nandel, Topathing is to hotel Tonjisha, Mitchell of Comas in Lavinaya, meeting Mosum Madochella, Tagate Chicans Gumason, Comasation, no Chumazoa, Karina Tonjisha, Tonji Karine, Kaga de Tonjisha, Tagwengula Mariba, Ting women, Timais, Tagwengobo. Soon you are cutting huge time, but I'm going over to be to 10 digits, the bottom did have to go to 10 minutes, some tongues about the rot, chutney, any Masha, some one day. Tonji Masha into any Gendu Pabjut Mava in test, Gendu Tonga, Matoche, Koran, Pig, Pajola, quarter of Stan Charm, dudes. Then take a quad chan. Laviacina, you are eating in Quatia charm and do Tirate Carsorta. Paju city Valache, Jundumun to Kazet of it. Next came maybe Kazake of the Recha and what is Sunguyazare.
Now, Prasangikas, they tell their opponents, essentialists, but listening to what you are telling us, I think you have really not understood at all the point we are trying to make, okay? But you are trying to still how should I say, make an argument with us. And the crux of the matter here is that you are clueless about what we're talking about. The Tenzin means, you have to have the image or the picture meaning in your mind. But you really don't get the real meaning about intrinsic nature that we're talking about, and that's the whole problem. Okay? And let's say, if we want to accuse, someone as a thief, right? Then we must have a clear image of that person we want to call thief. Otherwise, without any image of a person, we say, well, thief, 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 right? What does it mean? It doesn't, it has no meaning. When we say somebody's a thief, then what does the thief look like? What did he do or didn't do? Whatever, right? We have to have that image. Then we can talk about that person and go after the person, whatever, right? Without that clear, what called the image of what thief is or should be, then it makes no sense. It's the same thing here. And what Prasangika tells them is, metaphorically speaking, you are like, you don't have a sense of where the target is, but you are trying to shoot the arrow and hoping that your arrow will hit the target. Well, it's not going to work because you are clueless where the target is and what it is, And so it's very important, to really understand, what do we exactly mean by intrinsic nature or reality. I remember one point before we quoted great Bodhisattva Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, where it is said, meaning that if we don't understand what is being fabricated and attributed to phenomena, then we will never understand that phenomena are devoid of that fabrication. Are you with me? So that's what it is. If you don't have this precise image in our mind, understanding of what is intrinsic nature, reality, okay? Because the person set the what we call the criteria. Should something exist intrinsically, then it must exist this way. Okay? If we are not sure about that criteria or the standard by which intrinsic reality is defined, then there's no way to make sense here. Right? Then they said that's what's happening with the essentialists. You are just clueless about what we are saying, but you are trying to still argue with us. Okay. No.
오체 밥주도 마바인데 랑기 연락들다 랑기 연락가 메뉴 받아 메뉴가 메고베 주된 때네 포로볼라 가도 가족이 잡아 세번 고과 곡 신도 가족 잡아 메뉴버 봐 certain 딱그 미팅도 땅으로 송기 서마 간데신 송기 알잖아 코랑게 바로 파조되게 현다 또 공개되게 간데신 송기 알잖아 연락이 이제 연락가 메뉴가 메고베 주된 딱 바꿔 거야 요 말이 송기서 주된 때네 다자 유나가 메고 면단 때는 베게 가르쳐 그러다 가 메고 세야지 가라 잠띵띵 없이 대비 되게 민도와스 주된 때네 바로 보게 야지 아마 태유가 따보되게 애니 베게 각주 가 거야 줍 거야 그 되게 각주기 제바 띵 고도 같이 저런 게 고도 같이 엄마 텐주비 각주기 제바만 뭐 맞대는 파베한테 저런 게 고도 가 각주 자민년 비도도 와 각주 가과에 지죠 말에 들어와 있죠 말에 빼봐 생명될 행보로 쓰는 대대 그래서 그랬다 행보로 쓰는 대대 그래 각주 쓰는 지야 개 민두 민이버 코로나 그때 되고도 코로나 때 되고도 다들 가지 되는데 되고라 봐 각주 지야 요 말에 행보제 대고래 봐 잠든데 똑바생이도 까 남도 생이도 까고 시기 여러 왔다 남도 까서 그래 봐 남도 까고 효로 똑바 강이 봐 까고래 지야 일 미쳐버지는 번 잠든데 지야 일 미쳐버지는 대선에 에티 약보를 맞도지 똑바 까버신데 그래 남도 까버신데 똑바였냐 뭐 까고 맞도지 똑바 생이도 샤샤네 가르치네 마시네 양 담에 되겠지 저 대용 그래 근데 등에 여러 봐 지야 일 미치면 등에게 근데 가사들이 여러 봐 다도 등두스기 얘기를 봐 아니 가르쳤는데 교대한테 보자 교대한테 보자 아니 제가 각주 민도 같은데 이나 미행이야 각받치죠 말이 두받치죠 말때 두번도 두 꼭은도가 그러나 전에 각주 미행이 만두고도 센 어딘데 송구반도
To kind of summarize that whole argument here is, according to the critique or the opponent, you see they are making just 2 points. One, they said, according to you, Prasangikas, if something were to exist intrinsically, were to exist intrinsically, then no amount of reasoning would be able to refute that. Okay, so that's the position. Okay, and then the second point person can make is that intrinsic reality does not exist. Okay, and then still you apply a lot of analysis and reasoning. That makes no sense to them. They said that, why are you making so much effort to refute that something does not exist? I mean, why do you need to do that? The best thing is, just be quiet and silent, and don't entertain all these kind of thoughts. Okay? The point here is, remember, in certain philosophical thoughts or positions, they said that the way to understand ultimate nature is don't think at all. Stop all kinds of thought processes. Right? Thinking about nothing is the way to go. When we started to think, then they said, then we are bringing a lot of troubles and problems. They said, because what makes us get into trouble is thinking too many thoughts. They said, stop every kind of a thought processes. No good, no bad, just don't think about anything. Life will be simple, and you will get to the reality. Are you with me? So if you stop all kind of thought processes, which also includes the conceptual analysis, analytical meditation, all of reasoning, then really we cannot progress spiritually. We cannot understand the ultimate nature of things, because if we stop our intelligence and faculty to think and reason out. Yeah? So that is the problem with them. Their position is that stop thinking every thought, and that's the way to understand things. But you, Prasangikas, are too much into thinking and reasoning and analysis, and that's why you got into troubles. But the Prasangikas tell them, what, you really don't understand the whole, the framework of Gaktu. Dakpa means refutation, to refute the incorrect positions and assumptions, and Dupa means to establish the correct positions. The whole argumentation has to be something to do with, what are the wrong positions you think other people are in, and then you challenge them and you refute them. That's called Dakpa, refuting, negating, right? And Drupa means you should establish your position. It's not enough to refute others' position, but what is your position, right? Prove it, establish it. So this whole framework of argumentation is lost upon you, because you said, well, just don't do anything. Just be quiet and just, stop thinking. And so Prasangikas says, basically by telling us that, you are simply denying all the reasonings and, that we bring to the table. Because you said, no, stop thinking, no reasoning, nothing. So then what can we do? If you can't reason, if you can't debate, you said, now stop everything, right? You're just denying the whole, well, they didn't say my right to reason, right? But that's what it comes to, right? You're just kind of denying our analysis.
that take one to song. Kaptu Chamin, David Chirdas, you think of a tea chance, Diane, the party to Ranuk Jagdoa. Chirangi, meeting Malatis, Chirang, Kalki, you are it. You think of a tea, Poru, Kaptu Chabran Dobala, any Sichok Mare, Kago Mare, Tuga Marisa, Meme Vetalaka, Jaju or Marisian, Lapti, enemy, Carson, Desundo, Dobala, Kakachawa, Merictes, Songa United, Ricky Maris. Mericte carries an Charang to two of the Mintus. Mindukte carries an Charang in Chevinaya, Mandel to Kakatan came into Charang Chevinaya Carta. You not any car, Minula, Menaka, Mikuvichero, Sireta. Charang to Charang Dobatas go, the actual 10 you go, Dobatas go, Minduva Tower Pen, Dobatas go, Sierra. Tachu Meta, Cheve, says Sevinat, Dobat Caricheveratana, Touch Chena, Tamitabi, Tabakel and Yara. Chetata, Tango Dobatas go. That you just talk by incessant, and that Seva Marbe, that you Macheva, that way, says the other, Dobatas go cigarette. On the 10 years cigarette, till 10 years, that you Macheva, Taz, other Taz, you don't to. But to be Kejera, touch ever Maribel, that or I'll case it. Touch ever my Imbatani, Carsa, team base. Dakpa in base, Dakpa in base. 딱그 상로지 걸어 아 켄자 따디 딱바 있나라한테 양지 가르쳤다 세바 인세야 돼 때디 되게 믿어 딱바 생이들 맞이해지 그래 딱바 생이들 제때 딱 자체 계속 때 상무스동 그 상무스동 텐줄 생이들 상무스동 살아봤다 다 찡디들 로도 봐세야라 남배숑이 뒤세게 여봐 다 딱바 인세는 그 타지도 켈려서나 잘 빼샤게 여다다 이 되게 말아봤다 단다 텐줄 자네 신나 농가보는 템버트 봐 인세는 그 타지도 켈려서나 어때 말이스 그나 뉴것다부터 템버트요 말이스 뉴것주지 아니 되게 가르쳐 갔다 템버트 요 말이스 때 매비 인서다 어다가 갔다 뉴것주지 아니 되게 텐데 많이 봤다 템버트 베스지라다 텐데 많이 봤다 템버트 베스 따고 어때나기 다 텔레 텐주르스 그래 다 찍도 네 로도도 봐 세야달라 아니 가르쳐 가라 텐주르스 그래 단난 배송는 그 타징디기 로도 준대지 강자 진성나 자주지 메다 제베에서 람방 따고는서 매버리고 타징도 준비다 텐주르티 그 삼루지 땅 삼루지 거네다 다다다 메다 신피게 텐주르로 단다 잘 차게로 삼루지 땅 윤디발라 태dum갈 내서나 돈줄게 앞뒤지 야지 그 태dum갈 아 다디 간데 이나 삼게 태dum들로데 태dum갈 내 보인다서나 다치지 메다 제베세는 따다 걸 주요 임버와 디마도질 당번 따 건도나 그 디마티 농기 와 말아봐다 제다 애니 제다 그나 신앙 공부를 탐지해 돼 템버트버 인세서나 나타 텐줄 거 그러다 얘랑게 템버트버 인세기 도와 난 드레틴들이 도와 근나히게 애니 가르쳐 지랑 주 가줍 셰시 주 땅야 딘 되게 매버리 되게 민두가 지랑 차 샤비 있나 이나 유나네 가면이 메나 아니 그르베 그렇다 메나 가 메고베 체랑 루레이네 tinde까 모고베 체티 주 가고 땅야 민두와 tinde지 송기 살아봐 어떻지
So person speakers are telling their opponent that you are simply denying our whole set of argumentations and analysis because you said there's no need to do that. Just be quiet and be silent. Stop all kinds of thinking. Yeah. If that's the rule you want to follow, then you cannot argue against us. So you should also follow the rule you're applying to us because the rule should apply to you as well. Why you need to argue with us and but then we can't answer it or bring our position because you said just stop thinking. He said that's not fair. The rules in the argumentation should be applicable to both sides, and so that's the point they're trying to make. And so here, Khensur Rinpoche really talks a little bit about how in Buddhism the logic or the metaphysics works. Now I don't know how much justice I can do with my English, but I'll try at least. That's in the monastic debate. That's the way I want to contextualize it. They use different types of reasonings. One is called teljur. Teljur means you point out the consequences, if literally translating it. Okay. One is we called the valid reasoning, takyanda. Okay. So when do we use different types of reasoning is the point. Okay. Now, if somebody has a very kind of a fixed mind that this is how it should be, then you cannot use what we call as takyanda, the valid reasoning right away because they won't get it. They're so stubborn. So you have to use the consequential reasoning kind of thing, point out, And so once they started, okay, they a little bit, loosen up, right? And then you might be able to use other set of reasoning. So an example given by Khensur Rinpoche here, actually give a couple of examples. One is, usually in the monastic debate, when we debate about impermanence, right? We said sound is impermanent because it is a product. Tacheje, mitade, chebeche, sound, right? Mitade is impermanent, chebeche is a product. So if something is produced, is a product, then it must necessarily be impermanent, right? It cannot be permanent. With me? Yeah. So somebody might have this fixed notion that sound is permanent, let's assume, right? There could be somebody who thinks sound is permanent, okay? So you cannot use that reasoning right away to that person. You can say, hey, listen to me. Sound is impermanent because it's a product. They're like, what? they're very stubborn. So you have to use a different types of reasoning consequences, tell you. So where you might say, something like, sound is permanent because it is not composed or it's not produced. Okay, you just kind of flipped it, just using the way their set of mind, right? Because they accept sound is a permanent, right? Then you said, okay, sound is permanent because it is not produced. Okay, it's not a product, in other words. But in their mind, they're not completely kind of, how you say, he never used the word stupid, okay, but I want to use it. They're never stupid. So they know that if something, this thing, is not produced, then it has to be permanent. But they kind of know that sound is a product in their mind. They think that sound cannot be not produced. Sound is something produced by causes and conditions. So they feel like, oh, okay, I have to rethink about my position. So I said sound is permanent, but now you're saying that sound is, non-product, which he believes that sound is a product. So you have to kind of create a little space for yourself to be able for them to doubt it at least. They think like, oh, now I want to rethink my position. And then you can use other types of reasoning. Yes, now same thing with establishing emptiness of intrinsic reality. Usually we say that a sprout, seedling, is empty of intrinsic reality. It does not exist intrinsically because it is dependent arising, isn't it? So if something, exists dependently or something has arisen dependently, then it must be devoid of intrinsic reality. It couldn't be anything else. Okay. But again, that reasoning cannot be used right away to a person who strongly believes with a fixed mind that a sprout or seedling is intrinsically existent. So you have to first create some space for to think about. Okay, so that's how in the monastic debates they use all types of different reasoning. So anyway, the Prasangika is telling the opponent, well, if you want us to, keep quiet, don't use words, don't use analysis, don't do reasoning, then why couldn't you do that? Shouldn't you be doing that as well? Because the rules of the game should apply to both sides, not to one side, So why you are like, kind of saying so many things to us?
Oh, that is the coming, coming, men and coming, go as Karam to a task with the Ravala. The inject that of the Sarachasi. That is your Ripa Tambe. Ripa Tambe and Gopanis, that Ripa Tambe and Gopanis, Chinjilo, Tuba, dog will say in the Yilas, that don't let Sungiarma. She Naranto can sit in and table to tabernacle in the wrong Sashi tucked up the Karina, Tubatiagro, Tinde, Cop Hammer with the Sosia, Tinde Maris, Tinde Maris, Kebam Jia, lost Kemari, till Lodi Koyul Shabina, Tinde Timothy, and that's no John Manguchi with the Lodi Tubaris in Fa Nuji Tangi or East, but Tampase Duta, Ribal Mangu Yorvata, Riba, and the Riba. Chuni riba, Tube riba, Chava Tube riba, and Riba Mangoyari. Ready in and they come to temperature to Mobu top you riba. Riba Petty Carsorta, Tagan of Spa. Riba Tampen Gopan, Chinji log with Tuba Toban with Cherry Lad. Tagati military, Nimin into senior security, their Maris. Kurang lot Tuba Tipa, dog with to go your aid. Tuba. Not to two or one to tune PH Karina, somebody lost jet your vata, Ranjoli Piggy, something to Kenjo, get it down which Tawan made a tire, what was a torrent in this head or what. But it in that your maris, tuberies, still lot tuberies. And in what I'm going to see my lot of a toba cherry lassie, checks it to change of checks it. Korangi located pass, Sene. Lot tondu to give up the city in last year. Check it, Vala. Regret to Nani, regret to Roban, Chiji Marobe, nearby Chevy, Tabin be cherry dress. Regret to Bate Yanja, Chi Marobe Lola, nearby Chevy, Tabris, Tabs do Valatati, not to Caracera, Tabs Yorba, Tab Metoya, Tabs Yomarva, Tablet, Tablet, Juan is. 건조 때마 탑중 돈돈 담바 탑리 중앙에서 계획이 봐. 어떤지 탑 대리 그런 게 로드파 친지 말로그 로드 네바제 베치도 단 예히 제베치도 예히 받겠니다 야 당고 삼중기 때는 당고 삼중기 피게 제 담죽 피게 당주 퇴배 퇴 동이 또비 따와서 속바 망보퇴 퇴니 텔 공부치네 삼로치단이 다티 간데 티네 삼로치단인데 삼중기 대 삼로단 담비시도 되게 레디 메르데 네바스니바티 치레세 송도아데 네바제비 탑진비 체에 신지 말로 로나 도반 도바타 치지 로그 로나 도반 도바티 치지 말로 로나 께브란 되베 아니 피게지 딘데스바 각좀 잡을때 곰불루도라 속베리베 예초 제선 장게 에니 진베 아니 뭐 각좀 치지 말로 네브라 차오 단디 랍자 시부 참부적인 사람 왔다 당 곰불루도라 속베게 아니 바가 때라 바베게 신질로 로데파 가르쳐올다 르토다 바가니 신지 말로 로이 깨답을 넣을 다 남당 되면 시부지 송야리 대나니 땅 곰불루도게 비게 송제베 르토 돌로 속바테다게 이제 신질로 로데파 도니 신지 말로 로 양 타고지 이 깨버는 능력이 강사지 신제들라 다 만도네 타가리고 신질로 로 타가랑 샤티 얘는 비게지 그네 내가 가르치는 다가 시아주는 버지 개요 말봐 너 진짜더라 아따 튜버랑 인터넷에 튜기 땡땡 레샤 그 튜버도 도고 도스는 예텐데 다 같이 지금 몰롬으로 잡에 느낌도 몰롬으로 잡지 된대시네 가르치 그러잖아 방법 튜종기 시랍되네 튜베게 있는 비게 똥이 좀 그 고불로도게 흉을 속에 똥이 속에 아니 비게 똥이 바 땜베게 아니 비게 노텐주 망부 투바체 되네 삼바체 되네 곰바체네 야지 코알 투다바지 시고도 근데 진게지 근데 능게기 미지나 근데 너 진게기 미지나 내 송다데 알라 때와든 너 루둘라 속비 루둘라 속버르조지 제순당니 가주 친지 말로 방해봐 네벨로 때버려 자고 가주 친지 말로 벌로 되게 너 친제달라 다가데 말이 다팅 장사팅 공부루기 흉을 떼내야 이제 텔 떼내 아니 뒤나게 가르쳐 그러다 제 남샤디 파지 틱 케네스터다 랑돈라부지 제비나 와다티 아니 케르부지 교요 말이 대체다 가그룹 진지 말로 공부루기 릭발서 버테달 템퍼처 신 송구요사레스
We are on top of page 206, where the paragraph starts with, we carry out refutations with excellent reasoning so as to stop inaccurate and mistaken conceptions. Proof by reasoning is a technique for developing accurate and certain knowledge and so on. Okay, now explanation given on that whole passage is Pasangikas are telling us that when they try to engage in argumentation, which involves, refuting, let's not say others' positions, but refuting what they consider as incorrect positions, and asserting or establishing one's own position, that whole thing about argumentation is really not for the sake of win and lose kind of situation in an ordinary sense. In an ordinary debate, you just want to prove your point and win the whole thing, and then you're against like a shush the other and like, not that, There is no winning and losing, kind of a thing in this kind of argumentation. And they tell us there's a two purpose why we are engaged in an argumentation or a reasoning. And number one is, as it said, to stop inaccurate and mistaken conceptions. Okay? When misapprehensions and mistaken conceptions exist in anybody's mind, these are the real source of problems and troubles. Okay? So in order to correct our correct perception, now I'm being redundant or something, right? So that's the one reason why we try to bring reasons and analysis and try to prove something. Okay, that's one purpose. The other one is, as we said, reasoning also helps us to develop what we call the conviction in reality, or it deepens, and our understanding and the certainty of realities. That's the second reason why we engage in argumentations and things like that. So those are the two purposes of engaging in a debate. And so, as I stated there, that of course, if those who really want to understand, realities as they are, and they really are thinking beyond that. They really want to go beyond samsara, right? They want to find the nirvana or enlightenment. Then they must rely upon authentic, explanations of those realities, such as the works of great Nagarjuna and his followers, right? Great Arya Nagarjuna is attributed to have composed 6 amazing treatises, such as the refutation of arguments and so forth, right? So here the advice is that we must rely upon authentic explanations of realities as presented by Nagarjuna in his works, 6 collected works, and his followers. And so it's not enough for us to kind of sit and be a wishful thinking. Yes, I realize that all this inaccurate perceptions and the misconceptions in my mind are real troublemaker. Please Buddha bless me. I'm free from that. While praying doesn't cut it. Well, that's what the Khensur said. I didn't make that one up. Right? He said, it's nice to pray, but we really have to do the real work here. And the real work involves study, contemplation, and meditation. There is no easy way out of that one. Yeah? So that's why there's so much emphasis on what we call the teba, listening to teaching, which is the study. Right? If emptiness is what we really want to understand, that's the topic. We need to study this seriously. We have to listen to teachings, the correct teachings on emptiness. And then listening itself might give us some understanding, but we have to make sure that our understanding is correct, that we are not falling way off the track or something. We have to do a lot of contemplation, a lot of thinking. So this involves reasoning, analysis, all of this, so that we refine our thinking and we develop the certainty that, yes, I got it, not like kind of, or maybe I think maybe 99% I'm right or something. No, you just have to make sure that we got it right, So that comes through a lot of contemplation and analysis and thinking. So once we got it, as we said, for sure, now we meditate on that so that we, develop the deeper realizations of it. So this is how this threefold approach of listening, contemplation, and meditation always go together, right? And in that proper order, if you will. Yeah. So therefore, as Pasang Geka tells us, that number one, all study is help us to be able to get the correct information. Contemplating the teaching, the meanings, will give us the certainty of knowledge and conviction in our knowledge. And then meditating on it is cultivating the insights in our mind state. Okay, so these are all important part of the whole thing that the Pasang Gigas are doing. Let me see. So in Buddhism, we use all kinds of reasonings. Of course, there's a whole, I told you, the whole Buddhist metaphysics or the logics whole area. There's like different types of reasons employed to access the nature of realities. Sometimes we talk about chunyi jirigba, reasoning that's based upon the nature of things, And sometimes we have what we call the murdob jirigba, the reasoning based upon the power of the facts, literally translating. Sometimes we have a reasoning that is what more like a comparative analysis reasoning, dudub jirigba, comparing and contrasting kind of reasoning. And sometimes we have what we call instrumental reasoning to accomplish something. There's so tons of reasonings provided in Buddhism to be able to access different realities of things, So we have to learn those things and then use them accordingly. So in this particular case, when we try to establish emptiness of intrinsic reality, at this point, primarily, we are depending upon the reasoning of the power of facts. Okay.
신지 말로 불러 깨버려 저 대대릭 반남 지금 고반이 신지 말로 불러 어리 다 뒤입니다. 대다리 반남진 고반이 고반나 신진로근 된다 순천의 권에 인비게 진지 말로비 네발제비 체리나 로 전자와 시긴 된다기 유 에르베 순진 바라 인세나 쓰게다 다양한데 대세니다 다디 진지로기 로티반 된다 말아도 뇌잔뇌지 있으나 개발선에 인다 돈을 봐지 대인도 타장하고 있나 타보 비게 맨다고 좀 봐도는 추 뇌지 슈텐 봐지 세네 이제 그래 로라틴데 시아스케요 말이스 로라틴데시요 말이 그 진지로긴 뒤에야 디파 순춘이 안다티 진지 말로 로제야기 타브리신 대송도가 돼 진지 진당 순춘에 내가 진지 말로 내밖에 있으나 로 전자를 찍긴 된다기를 봐 순신 봐 인시나 달로를 망고야리 가자된 별로이 망고시라요리 다른 나라도 다 락반도 제비나 다 락바트네미도 저 메타발라 딱바 제 친지로 로지 제게요리 다음에 발라 다듬 뒤때도 친지로 로지 제게요리 메타와 다자 제 사제진이 와리 풍볼까 메타의 라신 임발라 땅의 라신 뒤되게 친지로 제게요리 다 뒤에서 땅다 희신이 친지로 제 로지 친지로 망고 제안도가 다 배반잡았잖아. 지금 나한테 온게 통과세고 나 땡긴다보다 다지 랑 법에 나라 딴다 다신 자원나면 원시세리 돈들 나한테 온게 텐데 돈들 친지로 로 레디 돈도 관계 감들까기요 아래잖아. 가기요 말이지. 그것도 안 돼. 돈도 관계 친지로 관계 감들이 가기요 아래잖아. 때 가기요 말이지. 가리가기요서는 찌리 가짜된 베게 에네 똑발라 타이어바기 유장 찌리 가짜된 된 집에 똑바 타이어바지요. 나도 줄 남도 가자를 줄 남도 타이어바데 봐 타이어바데 돈줄 남도 디래도 남도 디래 요리 남도 디래 다 타이어바지 요리 대 찌리 가짜된 베 똑바 타이어바기 유장 니저 탐지지 싸와 줄이베 아니 진실로 똑바 강인 받대 아니 그게 렉브랑 뭐 동네 대 현유 순종으로 자대 똑바 탐지 말이 감들 가르까고 있어봐이나 대송도가 감들 가르까고 있어나 아니 다 예버지 요래디 얘나 전도 탐지에 싸워라고 진게 소리잖아 단디들이 단디 마릭 방아도 줄래 용게게 단디 마릭 버티 아마 라버지 신가도 마송시는 만 더블레시 중게 라버티 녀좀 봐 녀모시 탐지에 싸워라고 소리잖아 단디리 송도한테 산다 가위 봐 단디 가위 봐 녀좀 탐지에 싸워 줄베 아니 피게지 소리잖아 단디들이 로 친질라고 똑바 강인 받대 아니 다 근데 그 단디티 렉버랑 뭐 송네 다 건디 휴바나 이 타방게 노자노지 땀바 마인바 르 노자노지 때네 디 현유 순충으로 자대 단디리 당아도 고야 또도로 현유 순충으로 자대 지당시도 안 지당디 현유데 나도 순충 간들 나디어 담바도 나 남바나시 현 알아봐 지메게 달란트서 그 디우신 달란트 튜바 티데 달란트 나나 아디 틴데따디 야갈라 소자 거리 튜이나 부메다보다 메다 거리 튜이나 아디 대갈더부기 뷰신도 센 틴데센 니 현서나 아니 그 나만나신 현도를 띠요 말봐 지메게 지부지에네 제마 휴지 탑동으로 보지 가대 제비나야 디 나대 지메글레비 온게 마도 통을 요 말봐 단지 빼만고 로사이 마디 매비인다 디 따디 매비들이 따디 당면서 땡고 송네 락브랑 고 송네 단지 돈지 고 송고 세에 봐 어땡고 송네 애니피게디 디 현대 유지 송 총거리 현유지 송 총거리 내 송도 송네 디 현유 송 총으로 자대 따디리 도도로 디 현유 송 총으로 자대 텔로는 예정 탐지 도번 줄이 쳐라 대거라 욕하는 데가 봤잖아. 되게 말이. 그 예전 탐지에게 싸워치기도. 그 싸워 나버지 다들 들어간데 맞대기 싸워치기도. 이 도구도. 이 도구 얘나 아니 가르쳐 그러잖아. 지금 도자시다 때문에 서버 후근에 답대선 나버지 신동 마서 신 싸워라버티 녀석라버티 도르티 발 롱가에 맞던 감루그라와 어디나기 시기도 다티 쓰기요 달랍자 세브르버진 데리도와 세이그 순종아 자데 다티 순종은 가리요라잖아 대로로키 파 동네 도나 네바 탐제 도바 유리베처 어디 티파 도비는 네바 니구 탐제 안피게 도바 유리베처 유르테야도 마음 벌어와다 유르게디 람타 카톡 도스기요 말이 된 유르도 그래 제당 가서 가지 히잡을 송바나히리 유리롱아지 때먹을 내죠 디세뇨 뭐 탐제자 때먹 좀비 때먹 말이 버데 좀비 니모 탐제 좀비 유르스제 가지 있는 망냐마 도바네 바테마 리디오 어때 마 룽디뇨 뭐 토모 마임베뇨 뭐기 비게지 실레던 따와 제당디 마차지 디히기 어디다 데 마 케이브로 가서 갈 디스기 열다 어때 텔레는 요모 탐 텔레는 예종 탐제네 도번 주비 철로 송으래 어디지리
We are on page 206, where there is a question and answer, right, section, as you can see there. And so as we are going through this refutations of intrinsic reality and establishing that phenomena are devoid of intrinsic reality through reasoning, the question that's being asked is what is exactly the mind that is involved in this refutation? What are we trying to really eliminate? What kind of misconception are we trying to eliminate? So to answer that question, as Khensur Rinpoche has given this long explanation, that when we think about misconceptions or misperceptions or incorrect perceptions, they are innumerable in us, isn't it? Just we got tons and tons inside it. It's not just one or two or three things. It's just countless in some sense. Just to give you a sense of that, for example, now we have this grasping at permanence of things. Even though things are impermanent, we might grasp at them as being permanent. Well, that is one big misconception we have. Or even though our contaminated physical aggregates, because these are the products of delusions and contaminant karmic actions, but we are obsessively attached to them and we consider them as being clean, but in reality, our aggregates are, contaminated by delusions. It's unclean, but still we have that misconception. Even though things are devoid of self nature, but we attribute them to have, self identity, and we grasp at, things. So we have so many misconceptions in our mind, and also there are ordinary misperceptions, if you will, like due to some kind of a sickness, in the Tibetan there is identification of a jaundice, and if you have this serious jaundice case, you might look at the beard. Okay, let's not mention that mountain. You might look at a snow mountain and you might see it as a yellow mountain. While snow mountain can't be yellow, really. But because of that, the jaundice sickness, that your perception is affected, and that could be. Or people have, perceptions of they're riding in a train or something, and then they see all the trees are running in the opposite direction or something. But that's all due to different conditions. So there's tons of misconceptions, things in our mind. But the real culprit, if you will, we can say that, is grasping at intrinsic nature of things. That's like the mother life. Mother in the sense of what our kind mother is the source of all the troubles and problems, And so we have to be able to identify it and then counteract with the correct perception, so that we can free ourselves from all troubles, right? But one of the things that critics say, why do we have to get rid of that? Well, if we don't get rid of that, the storyline is same. We are going round and round in samsara, with all the suffering. So if we don't want that, then we have to uproot the very cause of samsara. It's just like a tree. If you don't want that tree, you don't like the branches, you don't like the leaves, you don't like, the artistic nature of the tree, well, just get the tree out of the root, then it won't bother you anymore. But if you try to trim it everywhere, then it'll grow back, So like that, if we ignore this fundamental ignorance inside us and try to work with other delusions, we still, will have problems. But if we uproot that fundamental ignorance, then all other delusions such as attachment, anger, hatred, whatever, you name the whole thing, it will all be gone, And that's why we are dealing with this nature of reality. And as we talked about this before, the way we counteract our misperceptions is not exactly the same as how things work in the external world. If house is caught in fire, well, we can throw water on it. That's how, you kill the fire. Okay? But if we have misconceptions, we can't throw water on it, and then, we can kill them. We have to generate the correct perceptions. Okay? And this is the crux of the matter, that we kind of look inside us and try to figure out how do things appear to our perception. Okay? And not only how they appear to our perceptions, how do we see them, we perceive them, our mode of apprehension. So as we talked about this before, things appear to us intrinsically existent, objectively existent, in and of themselves. Not only do things appear to us in that way, but we believe that's how they exist. So we are apprehending in that mode. This is the incorrect perception. This is the misapprehension. Now, to get rid of that, we have to, tell our mind, rather, that, the way things appear to us, the way we grasp at them, perceive them, it is not there. It's a non-existent. Are you with me? The referent object, technical term we call 显有, of our grasping at true existence or intrinsic existence is the intrinsic existence itself. And this does not exist at all, but yet we fabricated it and we are stuck with it. The only way to get rid of our grasping at self is to tell our grasping that, hey, you are grasping at something that does not exist at all. I mean, think about that. Something that doesn't exist at all, but we believe strongly that it exists. So then our life goes in round and round, everything else around that. You see, that is the trouble. Okay? And as we talked about this example before, that if you go to the magic show, well, magic in India, okay, not in Las Vegas. Anyway, my third footnote, maybe Las Vegas might work too. You know how they use this? Very skillful magicians, use all the tricks and the mantras and incantations, and then create this beautiful horse and elephants and, handsome men and women, beautiful women, everything else. So people who are at the magic show, who got sucked into this whole thing, what do they experience? They see real horses and elephants, real handsome men and beautiful women. Not only things appear to their mind in that way, they firmly believe, oh my gosh. So some get like, oh my gosh, I think I have a, first sight love or something. I'm in love with this woman or man or something. Okay? So they're completely influenced by that. Are you with me? But there are other people, for example, the magician himself, these things appear to him as well, horses and elephants, handsome men and beautiful women, but he does not grasp at them. He said, I'm doing the show, I need to eat, so hey. So he's not grasping at them, but he has the perception, okay? And then those who are not at the show at all, neither do they have the appearances, nor do they have the grasping. Are you with me? So like that, our position is just like these kids let's maybe use the kids, hopefully they don't get mad. Like we are kids at the magic show. Okay, we're completely taken by this magic. We see beautiful horses and elephants, and we want to ride on one of those horses and everything else. We make all troubles for the moms and dads. Like, I want to ride on the horse. That's what it is, But it is not there. What are you going to ride? There are no real horses to ride. So, but yet we demand. That's exactly what it is. We are, seeing things as intrinsically existent, and then we believe in that intrinsic nature, and then we want to pursue it. And that's how all other delusions come up: attachment, anger, hatred, jealousy, egomaniac, and all the other stuff. Okay. And so our job here is, as we deal with the analysis of the ultimate nature of phenomena, is to be able to identify this fundamental ignorance inside us. How do things appear to that cognitive process, and how our cognition perceives it in that mode, and then we have to dismantle that whole facade about the thing. We say, We are looking at things that doesn't exist at all. We believe in something in the figment of imagination. That's what we have to be figured out. Okay? That's called refuting, to use the technical term, the referent object of grasping. Okay. All right, so let me see that. Then where am I? Okay. So as Khensur Rinpoche quoted this stanza from Aryadeva's 400 stanzas of the middle way, Chetuk Shedap, the other day, where it says that to describe this fundamental ignorance, just like our, the physical sense faculty, it pervades the whole body system. In the same way, this fundamental ignorance, it pervades all our cognitive processes. So at the moment, our cognitive processes are very much influenced by the ignorance. And that's how we see things in one way, though they don't exist in that way, and then we believe it's that way. So now we have to be able to tell our mind and perceptions that we are grasping at things that don't exist in reality. Okay. So that's the way to go. No.
Oh, yeah. That is a shout. Oh, that's great. That can't change my hand around to the song door. I send you the any send you soon tune soon or chat the essay that I can use condition soon chew on the damn thing to read it. Damn thing. Damn it, dear. Can you take it? Because that can be you did. But God, you need that don't number to the damn you are. That is at the Yandic timber. Around the court, going there, as the tabatum tobalai, a 10 meter meron. 이 디테일을 찾아내신 장족에서 난인지 삼을서 탐제 첨부 토발한테 매드 메롱하지 이제 매버면 또 다음에 이렇게 따완도 붙이 줄 따완이네 맞지 봐 아니 참바된 인재를 속에 가대지 상부윤회야 대에 탐제 첨부 살이야 두두고 말이스 두두고 말이 가이사나 다 대세라봐 시럽매나 맹미 바로 청아이 애니 피게 이제 가르사 미국에서 장족을 봐 눈만이 있는 직송 여러 봐다 시럽 매비나 바로 지방하게 들도야 민두 신의 들도가 민두 바로 생각 대야들 한 컴퓨터 가르단데 근데 다와도 가르사다 동해 초근시 하지라부터 데베유도 롱망구지 랑긴 데베유도 로발라 아니 피게 지 민den기 지부지를 땡고 나이리 예송 요바다 디틱티 마치긴 도구멘도 농예 간제 롱한테게 민den기 지부지긴도 로이 민데 지부지긴도 바이 유튜브 티바 티신 드리야 로세야티 히랍으로 봐. 로 히랍기 아니 파르듯이 망가버되게 도제다 간제 양 파르듯이 망가버되 누메로 시버지 매스기요 말이야. 직도 직변으로 붙이는 또온으로 붙이 히랍시니 뒤야 코로 이제 직도 직면전에 아니 로그리스 여러와. 가서 노예 쪽은 달라든 데베이도 두번 지어라. 민대를 땡고 봐 지도 아니 대나hin기 이니 피게지 담변적에 따와기 히랍딜 애니지 다 dim매버때 자완이네게 아도바야 라와티 아탄다부터 요 마레스는 송버레스 온 다가이 자기.
So the last thing I want to say today before we stop the class is this, that for us to be able to understand and realize emptiness of intrinsic reality, we have to refute, we have to identify what the intrinsic reality is and then refute it. That's called refuting, that's called refutation of the referent object of our grasping. Once we refute it, what we see in this place is that voidness, which is the emptiness. So it is an essential path for us to be liberated. As Khensur Rinpoche explained, that whether we are seeking nirvana from samsara or whether we are seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of everybody else, it is a must for us to realize selflessness or emptiness as it is. There's no way around that. Of course, in order to become Buddha, we have to cultivate bodhicitta, we have to cultivate great compassion, great love, and all of those things. But without the wisdom part, however wonderful bodhicitta, great compassion, great love are, they are not adequate causes for us to become enlightened beings. So we have to integrate method and wisdom always together. Okay? And so as is stated in a text, and Khensur Rinpoche quoted from his memory very beautifully, which says that when we look at the 6 perfections, okay, the first 5 perfections, are almost metaphorically speaking like a blind, group of blind people. They can't see. It's the last perfection, the perfection of wisdom, which provides them the sight to be able to see things. Okay? So if we want to be able to achieve nirvana and full enlightenment, we have to practice all 6 perfections, because the first 5 perfections are very good. They complement your practice, but they are not adequate enough. And also he quoted the words of great Indian master Arya Chandrakirti, where it says that, he also says, that if a group of, blind people would like to go to their destination, they need to rely upon a person who can see things clearly. So depending upon that person, the person can lead them to their destination. Like that, the perfection of wisdom leads all other perfections, right? In that way, we will be able to go to nirvana and full enlightenment. Okay? So I'm not saying that other perfections are not important or anything like that, because they are very important, but without the perfection of wisdom, they can lead us to our, real goal, nirvana and enlightenment. So we will stop there today, and we yield the floor for you to ask questions, make observations. Yes.
The 3 things you mentioned, one was to listen, the second was contemplation. What was the third?
Meditation.
So what does he mean by meditation? Is that action? Because contemplation sounds like meditation, because you have analytical and that. What does he mean by?
I could ask him, yeah. Quran this is what that Theosam comes from Che Sumberwa.
Oh.
Penatongba Chasan, but Tebache, and Digalia, that's somebody that Chebache Jungurova.
Right.
She's the combat says you soon Sarwa. That's somebody the company the job shifts to Mandaka Chaba and comes to the Karichi Gorsada. Samba maybe.
Somebody compassia, Samjung Siadi, Karzakat, Maton been near Kia, call Jeba Yuli, Jeba Shim, near Kitala, Samjung Sigravala. Tina Jeba Nibaya, Tony, Tony, Koya Lotia, Mosum Ravikin, Chubati, Conjung Sinita, Sigata, to some consum Teta Rimji, Junjedi, Rimji, Katu Yineta, Shijung Matu Veteri and Roku Gares.
One way to look at the difference between contemplation and meditation is that in contemplation stage, you may be analyzing and investigating, whatever the topic is, and you haven't gained the real experience of it, But as you really complete your analysis and investigation, then when you really develop the real sort of experience, start to develop, then it goes into the meditation. This is where you further your experiences through meditation process. Another way to look at this, for example, on the contemplation stage, we usually get a conceptual understanding of things, isn't it? Which is intellectual understanding. But through meditation process, we will remove the conceptual images, and then we get into real experience, right? So now we are not intellectualizing so much, but we are transforming the intellectual understanding into actual experience. So that comes through the meditation process. Okay, yeah. Yes, please. Yeah.
So you've contemplated, then you go into meditation to think about what you just came up with, just to really, how do you do that in meditation? Is that single pointedness, that one subject, and then just see if it comes to you, or what? How do you do that?
Okay. Now, when I this is what I can say, that and the samba chayarwa, samba the compassion chayarwa. That's sometimes che they digi. That samba the compala juriagi. That has judan of can't check what is or what. Say you do sometimes they the comes together. Cause samba ne compala judan chayarwa. Or the can't something worse.
That day, Mango shoot, how you tarry. Somebody, a lawyer, Nuaton, lawyer, Tar Chinia, Nuaton, do well, any company and do it. Lord, the Tagarai, the Samba Tagarai, Yak. Into anything, compatibility, leave your married. Somebody knew I, Tony, I, Kali, said you do well, cutting a chill cage, I had single do better, me do better. 아니 랭가 메뚜 봐 땅에 메뚜 숨을 빼자위 봐 어때 삼중생에 대신 랭가 메뚜 빼서리 이제 대야야 다 치인도 제 땀니 빼 지강지 매벌 제를 뭐 잡고 되고 뒤소리 제때 러버디데 곰발이야 두고 알아서 검중생이 두고 알아
Now, sometimes there seems to be like a bit of an overlap between contemplation and meditation. Maybe that's why, you have difficulty differentiating that. Contemplation is basically thinking about, thinking thoughts, about what the topic is. But when you do that more and more, you can sense that your perception or experience of the reality is getting better and better, refined, isn't it? So there is the power of familiarization that kicks in and helps you to able to experience whatever the topic or the object better and better, And finally, it could become what we call non-conceptual direct experience. So when that is happening, as we said, there's some improvement, refinement in the process. This is where we see the meditation is happening. So we have to do contemplating all the time. So by simply contemplating, if there's no improvement, let's say hypothetically speaking, then there is no meditation. But through contemplating, as we see that our mind is getting better and better, whatever we're thinking, or the insight, deepening insight, then we call that meditation part. And Khensur says, I think he another time used this example of, how somebody wants to learn how to swim, isn't it? So first the person doesn't know, can't get into the water, and you just kind of, you drop into the water. You can't stay, right? So somebody helps you, or there are different devices you can use, right? You can just kind of do, and then you fall into the water, you do this. So after a while, as you do that, your skills get better, and maybe sometimes you need the device, sometimes you don't need the device. This is like almost like a little bit into meditation part, right? As your reliance on the device is cut off, it's more like meditation experience. Then at a certain point, you don't need any devices at all. Now you can just swim like you want, right? That's really like being in a meditative state,
So the contemplation turns into meditation on its own as you start discovering it, and that's what the realization is.
That's right. Repeated contemplation, it really transforms your mind into the meditative state, Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think back to,
Rinpoche, if I understand correctly, there's the appearance of intrinsic existence, and then the grasping.
Right.
Now, the grasping is attachment, so it's something that's eliminated, refuted by the path. So then what the reasoning refutes is the appearance of intrinsic existence on the one hand, and the path refutes the grasping intrinsic existence. Now, but since all conventional phenomena appear to be intrinsically existence, doesn't that mean that reasoning actually refutes conventional phenomena? Because if it refutes if something separate from the conventional phenomena, which is the intrinsic existence, that means that after we refute intrinsic existence, some kind of an aspect of conventional phenomena would remain, but nothing remains. So it appears that reasoning refutes conventional phenomena.
다나도 권한 디시디오 간라 변한 간저 최탐제 다가서 랑면의 두번 낭되게로와 나제 낭바다도 될이야 신디고로와 다 신바데 코랑기 다 착배기 왕루신 다디 람기 각도 사대 있어레스 신대저로와 다이네 낭 담바두번 나야저로와 낭바도 그 리베가서 사대 있어레스로와 딘데 이만스 다디 바이나 아니 가서 리바타부터네 최탐제 랑신기 두번 낭바도 봐 가버와 가두디 간라야 아니 타니에게 최저로와
와레디
딱 가서 가두데 가야면 동상 샤버와 지도 가서 타니에게 최대 가둥을 차두거든요 말해서
대가가 말해 대가네 대 딱그 망보이 휴사이 이제 가리는 나랑 그 치고 가리 근데 시비나야 대기래 봐 따동 대기래 봐 생각비나 수이나 따동 대니 따동 이게 말해 저 감이나야 아니 나도 밑에부터 따동 대비네 밑가봐도 밑 나공도 왜 락바래 왜 지금 따동 대대도 기부 감정 뒤에 감정 뒤에 때네 기부세야 따때 명당 따요 되면 되지라 이야 주요 말해 이야 믿어 Yeah, come to your marriage. Jabinta, Anita, the Ranchi to Bas. Ma, this yen is simply you may but the Tomba Ni, Sia Windu Balatati, the Carsorta, Tobe Pass, Dakpa, some tiny to be choosing Tagiota. The Manatanga to Tikaya Marin Jippa Chigiore, Tombani Namanga Kum, Tomba to Tombani in this Kum, the Taya Kaya, maybe Rania pe la dogin of Nate pe la don't get and then Jitaji your Tapesa, not la sauce to some Jitaji your is. Tombani Tanyan, Hirapchun point. Se dar tula suni ne renga chang phon ju se ta de pe sha ro tong ba ni le ke te ta dang de ma hian pe na ya la ya ki tin de ke chu tham je ta la song sam ya ki tak ba che ya ki tin de yo re ti ne ga de yo re se ta ta than ni de ti sha gu do than ni de ti sha gu re.
Actually, what you really said is, very much, how to say, addressed in the Buddhist literature. That's a very important matter. You're bringing it up. Especially people who, like say, through even proper reason analysis, they get a sense of reach that voidness. In the beginning, they get scared, frightened by it, because they almost feel like, okay, now nothing exists. It almost seems like we have refuted all the conventional realities completely. That's why there are stories about, somebody even had to kind of grab the corner of his robe because he thought, oh my gosh, I don't exist now. What happened, right? So there is that sense. But what we are refuting, as we know, is that intrinsic appearances and intrinsic reality, not the conventional phenomena at all. We're not touching that at all, because conventional phenomena, what it is what we call labels onto different bases of imputation. For example, Khensur used the example of a person, right? We say, okay, whoever the person is, we're analyzing. We say, okay, who is this person, the imputed person? Then we analyze, is this his head, her head, whatever, all those things, all the elements that constitute the body. At the end, we said, a person is none of these all elements. It's simply a label onto a collection of all that, So it is just a merely labeled reality. There is no substantive reality out there. Yeah. So you're right that, when we use the reasoning to refute intrinsic reality, and then we, through analysis, reach that sense of voidness, it might scare us. Almost seems like we have refuted, conventional aspect of reality, but that's not what it is. Conventional, we haven't touched it. They exist as merely labeled phenomena as it is. Okay, we are just dealing with the fabricated nature and only simply refuting that part, aspect of the part. Let me see. And there's an example in the Buddhist literature about how they said, if we don't apply proper analysis of emptiness, we might get into a certain situation state that might frighten us completely. And the example given that is, somebody who's not trained well to catch a poisonous snake, according to the ancient Indian tradition, there are some mantras you can recite, and then you have some skills to develop. Then you can grab the, poisonous snake. If you have the skill, you can grab the snake, and then, you don't get hurt. But those who are not trained well, life could be in danger, because the snake can bite you. So like that, if you don't apply the analysis properly, we might get into a different situation. But what you really said is a very important point, yeah.
But let me follow up with the question about the labels. If all conventional phenomena are merely labels, labels are also, aren't they compositional factors? So because of that, that means that the path eliminates them. Not reasoning, but still they're also eliminated by the path, because they're, right, non-associated compositional factors.
Okay. 내내 제비나 당당 아주 최 탐제 요르와다 단위가 최 되게 강가로 아니 디체그를 배서 다 고랑 삼도단다 지려 먼저 들어 데멘드제 데멘드제로 와 다음에 단위가 최 강가 데멘드제 차도 여베이나다 데멘드제 되나 그 람기 가자로 차로 시고도 스로와 그게 가자 차기면 되스 그래서 거기 직선에서
아니 단위 최 탐제 담배듯이 차기 말해 들어 단위가 최 탐제에 따라 소
그 명사면은 그 데멘드제 말을 배서 단위가 최대 그래 똑바로 따가서 명사면으로 와 데멘드제 인구도 서로 와 다 숙제 가야만 이미 차로 와
똑바로 땀다게 이 해야 될다 소게 요리 희바에 요리 라멘두제 요리 송가 요리 단위 딱 동 때니 미야 그 되게 루파 딱바 땀지 샤고다라 pension 담에 되지 송가요 하래.
No.
펜보치 다른 담에 되지 작으면 되었어.
No. Tamara kiso resistance. Kesi chue tamje mingzam inerwa. Ta mingzam de ko deme de jesi do wa. Ta sukshe kanya membe ko de jesi mi ko sise serwa. Chesa chue tamje mingzam ina. Ke tön me be mingzam iba na deme de je charu ros. Deme de je iba ina and lam ge gagja chag do ma do ribe gagja chag me do.
네 람 자자 민땀 대하게 되겠다. 네 민땀 레 만도 지금 추 파조가 원이 가르쳐다. 그런 담에 뒤지 임베 참 민땀 민세야지 여러분 아들. 데리겨 말아 봐. 근데 속도 붙이글라. 품바 품디 떡발 붙이글라 아니 속 품바라 봐. 또 뒤쳐져 던지 너 빠진 민리 들어봐. 민리 봐. 디코레 민리 마도 파조 팁 민디하고 रेंडुयो मारवा सुप देयो रवा सोंग रबि देयो रवा पेन मिचिल मिंस्ता बिन देस गिरवा को मिंग देवा को मिंग तंग शाबरे मतो को मिति नि कि मिंग ति सिग मारवा रवाला सारदांग छिदवा
알레네 다 민기 차데 데메 되제 레드 요르디 콜라 피게 지 요르
오지 요르
다 지 요나 양코 랑wen 두버 통머르
라
지 요버르 지나르와 페나 소세 또제 또데 셔주 주주 되제 민자 메베 비게 지 요르 바다 도도
네네네
다데 두 선나 코 랑wen 두버 차 용마르야
아
양코 비네 또데 셔주 디코 랑wen 두버 차 용마르야
말이 랑을 줘봐 차 말봤다 또게 바샥담 시티발 땀라 제기지 거리 샥담 레 디테글 샥바 임백이 자와진 게지 요아리 수이나 포모 가리네 자와진 게지 타디요 아리 대인지 메진 담에 뒤지 인고 말이스
The reason I was trying to clarify is, sometimes because Mr. Charlton he had a little hard of a hearing, so I have to yell and scream and make sure that he understood the point, not that we were arguing with each other. Khensur just said that, let's take an example of a vase, okay, a pot. How it's defined in the Buddhist literature is a pot is something that can hold any liquid, but it's a bulging stomach and it has the stand and everything else, okay. So the pot or the vase itself is the label that's given onto the collection, whatever that thing is, It has that part. But beside that label, it also, there is, that thing you can perceive that functions as a pot, okay? And so from that point of view, it is not what we call non-compositional factor, okay? Because the pot has a form, right? It holds water, it can function that, and so it's not a non-compositional factor, right? But the label part, maybe, sense like, we label that as a pot, but at the same time, it's not just a label in the sense that, how should I say? It's very difficult. That's how I said the emptiness is so difficult to explain. When we say that all phenomena are merely labeled, we're not saying that phenomena do not serve any purpose or functions. They could still have their own forms, or if they do have the forms, because phenomena are divided into three kinds, isn't it? Suk forms, and then consciousnesses or the minds, and then neither of them, right? They're different categories. So those different categories of phenomena do exist and perform whatever their functions are, even though they are merely labeled, So that's the hard part, Okay, thank you very much. So we will stop there. So thank you for your active participation, and whatever I have explained here, please try to, give some thoughts to that and integrate into your daily practice, okay? We will do the Manjushri prayer first in Tibetan, and then the quick written prayer in Tibetan, and then English, and then Vietnamese. I have some, announcement to make. I almost forgot. And then a prayer request. The prayer request is for Julie Yi, who is hospitalized, and so prayer is requested for her to be able to recover from her sickness. Khensur Rinpoche di kyamju shuro na sa tanda nyepa chi mengang lo yose ro wa moran ming lo Julie Yi sa de la tungmen kyamju na ro na su.
Okay.
So we will do some prayer, and the announcement is from the GSTDL board. That GSTDL need volunteers to be able to help with these little things, to clean up the gomba after the teaching every day, or things like that, to keep things neat and tidy here. So if you are interested and have time to pitch in so that then everybody doesn't have to do, the thing every day, so we can switch to each other, please contact Carlos, who's on the board member, or Geshe several are there, or I believe maybe there's also a sign-up sheet somewhere. Okay, so please talk to them, and so if you could help, some Sundays or whatever other times, to do, cleaning and vacuuming and all that. So let me see. Maybe we will first do Om Mani Padme Hum for the Julie Yi and others in a similar situation, and then do the other prayers. Chadong Kolo Yebo, Yebo Dong, Jendong, Yewa Sambu, Sanye Dong, Kala Kandu, Tela, Dedu, Zumba Chenre Sela, Chanze, Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Omane beme o gewa di nyodo da chere se won rojo ne rowa che jamalu
Te salam go barasho.
lama da gombo chi den jambe
Jambe
yang
yang
la
la
cha
cha
ze
che
lo kangge lo
Lo
de
de
chen ye
chen
tin
de
da
nyen
yin
da
da nam
nam
da
da
ra
ra
se
se
be
be
chen ye de gun
Che
chi che
te
si che
che
ye
nye
ye
che
to
to
ga
ka
le
le
bo
ban de
kang da se be chen ra ma re men dong dong en ye
Ge
se
se be
do
zho
zo
zo
gong
gong
la
la
bo
bo
je
je
da
da
ze
ze
yang
yang
la
la
zhu
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 yang
yang
den
den
song
song
do
zhu
da che zho
Nyo
nyo
mo
mo
nyo long
le
le
je
je
cha
cha
zho
zho
zhe
zhong
ze
ze
che
che
ma
ma
re
re
men
me
se
se
dong
dong e
en nyo wo chen
Chong
ye
ye
zhe
chen
ze
ze
re
re ze nan de
Dene
ne
da
ta
je
che
sa
sa
ju
ju
da
ta
ze
song
yuen
yun
de
de
lun
lun
zo jia se tu yu gu
Ju
ju zha
zha jen ye jen zhe
da
da
lu
lu
me
mo se jan
jiang
be
bei yang
yang
lan
la
de o ma ra ba zhen da di o ma ra ba zhen
na
na
de
de zhen de che
Che
je
je
jian
jen
ra
ra
wei
wo
se
se
jian
jen
da
da
lu
lu
tian
tian
mo
mo
men
men
ba
ba
ra
Ka
ka
da
da
jian
jian zhe
zhe
xiong
xiong
lu
lu
na
to
ba
ba
yin
Lo
lo zhe
zhe
ba
pe pe na wa se do so
Son den ba nya men den
Jen
zhe
zhe
se
zhen
zang
den
zhe
de
lu
lu
zhe
zhe
tong
to
men
me
bian
jen
zhu
jen
chu
chan
zhen shan
De
di
bo
bang
man
ka
ka
ra
ra
yap
yap
je
je
zong
song
ga
ga
ba
we
den
Den
de
de
ge
ge
le
li
se
se
be
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 Bai du
chang
Chang
zhe
zhe
ning
nian
bo
bo
che
che
be
be
xiong
Xiong
lang
lang
zhe
zhe
nam
Nam
da
da
shui
chu
din
je
sum
se
je
be
le da nam
Nam
da
da
chu
chu
je
je
nyam
nyam
do
do
che
che
be
pe
be
be
bang
Bang
de
de
la
la
me
me
sha
sha
la
la
so
so
wa de chu
Chun
de
de
che
che
be
be
ge
ge
ra
ra
le
le
da
dan de
nian
Nian
du
dan do
chen
gun de be
sim je je san
Sang
wa
wa
ri
rim
nian
ye
nian
nian
zhuo
zhe
la
la
jue
jue
be
be
lo
Lo
san
san
jiang
jiang
dian
de
be
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 be do zhuo
Ni
ni ma
ma
nga
nga
ye
ye
rang
rang
da
da
chi
chi
de
de be
ji gui mi shi dong wan di guang la ye de be ze gu zo xie yang zhe sun nam be zo nyun zhun shuo. You have a Manjushri prayer, can you start? Yeah. O peerless savior and supreme teacher, Shuddhodana's son, for the 17 masters and the Nagarjuna and the Sangha and so on, for Divamkar as well as Sovereign Father Tsongkhapa, gloriously appear here to grant auspiciousness. On the great path leading to the heart of enlightenment, you have traversed by means of the perfect threefold discipline and have enhanced ever higher the realization of the enlightened qualities. O glorious Guru, we offer our supplications at your feet. Pray return gloriously to propagate the teaching of love song by tying well the sash of monastic disciplinary precepts and generating the altruistic intention to free all beings. Engage in the tantric yogas of the two stages. Think of the unbearable pain of the sentient beings who are enveloped in the forces of 5 degenerations, and open wide the lotus grove of the Buddha's teaching. May your reincarnation appear soon as a source of merit for us. Băng ca ra trường sông cao bông vông thư phụ con lâm đồng cho hệ đàn bản đại thuốc hến đàn đá lộ thuốc chi chân đầm kén đàn đặc ngạc hệ đà sĩ chủ vô đề nghiêm được rồi lại phải cử ba bông thứ viện bố đi hạn chứng tông su con viên thu chung kinh thủ gót sầm bèn thơ mơn cho lại con hữu bè ba bọc lô sáng bằng số đá chạy đá cười nghiêm mình tuấn độ thu viện rồi lại khó tầm đô bi đáng nguyện cả thời chúng sinh. Shabe Sidi Madu Tenjo Inji Yedan Guru Rana Mande Logo Niya